Okay, so we're going to go through the narrative account. This is question 2 on the American West paper. This is the only time you will answer this type of question, which is what makes the American West part of the course quite difficult, is that the question types and styles are completely different to that of paper 1 of medicine, and the second half of paper 2, Norman England, and paper 3, Germany. So it's worth us going through this, that you can try have a go yourself at some point. It's worth noting it's only worth 8 marks, this question, but it does cause some issues for students every single year. A couple of things to go through. The main structure we use is something called DEC. So DEC, describe, explain, and connect. We'll talk through how to do that, but I think it's first just worth us going through the basis of what this question is. It's a narrative account. Ultimately, a narrative is a story, and every single story has a beginning, a middle, as an end. You kind of want to keep the basis of that for this question within the account. It's not just a story though. You're not just telling the story of what happens. You have to analyze the importance of the events that you are relating to in the question. So whatever the question happens to be, you are saying why that is important. There's fundamental skills that we teach you through the petal paragraph as well. You're not just providing evidence, you're also providing that key analysis. The bit that most students find difficult is linking these events, and you can see here we've got the kind of the images to show you is a chain, and they're all linked. That's what the whole purpose of the narrative account is it's a sequence of events that are linked together. So generally what we tell students to do is to write 3 short paragraphs, 3 DECs, 3 describe, explain, connect, which is shown here, and obviously they're all linked together as well. We did a little bit of practice on this when we looked at the how the US changed its territory when it gained the territory. We did the interactive role play, so we have kind of looked at this a little bit. So here's the kind of how it starts. You've got the describe, so here you kind of describe the event. So whatever event that you're talking about, this is what a lot of you are very good at. You're good at providing that knowledge, and this is where you want to be using dates, key individuals. I've used the word stats here, anything like that that shows good knowledge of the period, good factual evidence, precise knowledge. Once you provide that description, you need to then explain its importance. That's what we're interested in. So analyze why that piece of evidence is actually important. And the final part of it is to connect to the next event. So imagine this top box here is 1 paragraph. The top bit you would have described the event, you would have explained why it's important, and now you need to link to the next part of the story. Just like a beginning will link to the middle, and the middle will link to the end of the story. Think about what the end of a chapter of a book has. It kind of alludes to the next part of the story. That's what you need to be kind of really trying to do with this question. And the connect just comes in a sentence really, and I've got an example to show you. So it's quite straightforward, but students do find it quite difficult. A sentence that explains the linkage to the next part of the story. The final paragraph, so the end, you're not going to have a connecting sentence at the end because the story is over. So what we say for the last C is a concluding sentence that completes the story, like an overall, like a conclusion. So this is the question that's in the booklet at the end of the cattle industry. So if you've watched the video, and hopefully you have, on the development of the cattle industry, you will have a good sound knowledge of how that industry developed. I've actually changed the question. In the booklet it says why the long drive developed. I've changed it to cattle industry. I just think for now, in the situation we're in, this is a bit of an easier question to go through. So this is what it looks like in the exam. Write a narrative account, analysing, keyword there. Obviously it's not just a story, you must analyse why the cattle industry developed in the period 1865 to the early 1870s. So we've got quite a big time frame. Sometimes the narrative account can be a little bit more specific and have a couple of years. Sometimes it can be quite wide-ranging. It kind of depends. But this one is going from 1865 to the 1870s. 8 marks, and it gives you the 2 stimulus points. End of the US Civil War, 1865, and the establishment of Abilene, 1867. Interestingly, the American West course always provides the years, whereas the other parts of the history GCSE don't do that. So it's helpful, and especially helpful for this question because it needs to be in chronological order. So you need to start with the beginning. So quite often I find that it will give you the beginning here as well. So 1865, I mean, look at that, there you go. And obviously we know that 1865 is here as well. So this is the start of the story, the end of the US Civil War. So I'll show you, I've done an example paragraph, and I'll show you where the deck kind of is within that paragraph, and I'll highlight it as well. So we've got red for describe, explain, blue, and green for connect as well. So let's have a quick read. So in 1865, after the US Civil War had ended, many Texan cattlemen came home to find that the number of cattle had dramatically increased to around 5 million. So we've got some key factual evidence there that we talked about yesterday. With such a surplus amount of cattle, Texans could only sell their cattle in Texas for around $5. Again, good knowledge. However, in the northeastern states such as Illinois, Chicago, there's a huge demand for beef, and cattle could be sold in excess of $50. So I don't want to highlight the whole thing just because it'll be quite hard to read, but generally those first few sentences up to $50 is describing the end of the US Civil War. You know, what's it got to do with the cattle industry? Well, the cattlemen come home to Texas, there's 5 million cows, they can sell them for $5 in Texas because there's a surplus of them, there's a lot of them, or they can sell them for $50 in the Northeast, as we said in the video yesterday. So that's the description. You describe the event, stats, and other key factual evidence. As a result, so whenever you see the word as a result, the phrase as a result, you've got an explanation. So as a result, Texan cattlemen need to develop ways in which to drive their cattle from Texas to the Northeast so they can make a maximum profit on their cattle. So that's explaining why they want to do it. That's explaining why the cattle industry is developing, because they want to make that profit. So make a maximum profit on their cattle. However, as we know from the video, there were many obstacles in the way that prevented the selling of the cattle to the Northeast. This led to other Texan cattlemen developed trails to the west. This is the connecting sentence. They want to go east to the Northeast, they can't get there, so therefore they have to develop new ways to sell their cattle, and that's where we know we have the next part of the cattle industry. Now I won't reveal what it is that you need to speak about, because you can see that the bullet point here is establishing of Abilene. There's a part missing to the story. The middle is missing. And you can kind of go anywhere with this question. You don't have to talk about Abilene. There are many other things. Think about the cattle industry lesson, why it developed. So there's lots of things you can talk about. So what I will do, I will send this to you. And what I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to ask you to do paragraph 2, deck 2, and deck 3 as well. And I will mark that. And what I'll ask you to do is to do it on Word, like I've done here. And then what I can do is I can then actually add comments. I'll be able to make comments and say, good use of connective. And you can get some good feedback. It's really important to get good at this question. So I will send an email to explain how I want you to do that. Okay, thank you.